Well, hello, friends. It's Friday. I think I'm live. Usually it just works. There was that one time when I forgot to turn on the microphone. But even still, I'm just going to wait for somebody to acknowledge that it does work. But, you know, the fact that people are reacting. Hey, they can hear me. Thank you, James. I don't think I'll ever get over that paranoia. Thank you for acknowledging. Yes. And hello to everybody. Kenneth with the sweet cat dog emoji. Great. It's Friday, and it's once again time for the SerenityOS office hours, which, if you're new to the stream, what we do is we just talk about SerenityOS and the surrounding projects, and anything that chat wants to talk about, we will talk about. So you bring the questions. Network Exception says, well, hello, friends. YouTube just told me I'm not a subscriber. Well, yeah, so I think last stream I got this pop-up from YouTube before starting. They were saying, do you want to turn on subscriber-only chat? And I thought, well, why not? You know, like if these bots want to come in and post nasty links and stuff, the least they can do is subscribe to the channel. So I just turned that on. So I'm sorry for inconveniencing you, but I guess welcome to the subscriber team. Let's see. So Alex says, maybe slightly off topic, but what monitors and resolution do you use for development? 1440p? Do you have only one? If so, why? So I have two monitors, actually, if I bring up my hardware displays here. So I have two monitors, but this one is normally in 1440p mode, but I switch it to 1080p for recording and streaming. And I do that because 1080p seems to be what most people can watch comfortably on the devices that they use to watch YouTube. When I had higher resolution, I think in 2 videos, and some people complained that, like, this is too small. And I thought, you know what, it's easier to just do 1080 and then everybody can watch it comfortably. And, you know, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we're probably not going to do 1080p anymore. But at the moment, it seems like a sweet spot. But yeah, I have 2 monitors, and they are arranged like this. So you can't see it, but I'm yoinking this over to the right screen and back. And yeah, it's a pretty good setup. I've tried both dual and single monitor, and most recently I find that just being able to put Discord and email and stuff like that on the secondary screen, so I don't get distracted by it constantly, and I have to like shift my attention over to the right if I want to focus on that type of stuff. It helps me stay focused on what's on the main monitor, which is typically code. Let's see. A lot of people saying hello. Very nice to see you all here. Hello, friends. Hello. Let's see. Let's say hello to everybody. Hello, Sufi Bros. Sam, Supercomputer, James. Already did Kenneth. Alex, James, TB Poten. I don't know how to say that. Aaron, with the golden yak and undefined also. Network Exception, Nicholas, Paul. What's up, Paul? TTRSS, that's a cool name. Stefano, Hashem, and Ludwig. Ludwig Schubert says, hello, Andreas. I can see you've been busy working on the browser, but I'm still super curious about Yakt. Are you aware of any projects already trying it? I'm aware of the Yakt Nest monster, of course. I'm not aware of any like a larger projects in Yakt. I would expect come the 1st of December that a bunch of people are most likely going to do Advent of Code in Yakt, which will most likely lead to a bunch of bugs being filed against Yakt, and I'm actually really looking forward to that, and we'll see how that works. But I'm expecting people to find a bunch of issues basically, and it's gonna be fun to see so many people try it out. Vignesh says, nice wallpaper. I love seeing a new wallpaper in every video. Yeah, it's kind of a good habit, I guess, I've acquired since I started making the videos, that I try to always get a new wallpaper, and it just keeps me having fun and new wallpapers all the time, which is, I don't know, it's like this underrated source of everyday merriment, I guess. James says, having a second monitor is useful directly in development, I find as well. If I'm reading some documentation or spec, I can easily reference it without many alt tabs. That's fair. Yeah, that's fair too. I think I have kind of a bad habit to stack windows on top of each other and then alt tab, even though I have tons of horizontal space and I don't have to do that. I just do it anyway because of like bad habit, basically. I should probably do less of that. What's up, MSE LRHD? I remember that these are initials now. I don't know what they're initials for, but but they are certainly many. Hello, Carlos. Carlos says, well, hello, friends. String refactoring video coming soon. I'm stuck with C strings, so it's always fun to see other language implementations. So I've just been toying around with a couple of different approaches to a better string type, and we currently have two string types between Yakt and Serenity, which is a huge pain point for bringing Yakt and Serenity together. So we've kind of been going back and forth between like, what should we do about this in order to actually like finally start bringing the things together. And right now I'm leaning towards just coming up with the ideal string type once and for all, and then doing the sucky work of using it, or like doing the sucky work of adopting it everywhere. The main big difference that we would see compared to where Serenity is today is that today Serenity's string type assumes that allocation can never fail, which is why it's not allowed to use in the kernel, for example, because you can't make those kind of assumptions in the kernel. And we're gradually moving away from those types of that type of assumption in the user space code as well. So whatever we do, we do have to bite that bullet and do a bunch of grunt work to move Serenity to a fallible string type one way or another. But I don't know if that would make a video, because that's going to be more like a 2-week project or something like that, where with lots of kind of dull code grinding. Jaja says, hey Andreas, considered cross-posting your tweets to Mastodon. It can be done automatically. Would be nice not having to visit Twitter to see your tweets. Well, you can visit my Twitter on Knitter or whatever if you like. You don't have to visit Twitter if you feel strongly about that. I have looked at Mastodon a fair bit, and I can tell you that I'm not really interested in using that service. It does not appeal to me, so I will not be making an account there. But I'm available on Twitter and Knitter and Discord and YouTube and various other places. Svonimir says, do you use secondary monitor as assistance while coding for browser, terminal, etc.? Yeah, as I was saying earlier, I primarily use it for social things. So I have my email, my Discord, the Twitter, stuff like that. It's over on the right monitor, and then I keep my focus on the code right up in front here. Hello, Taraboba. Taraboba says, I'm unfortunately late. I would say you are fashionably late. It's not an issue. MSCL RHD says, MSCL is a TV show I like and liked at the time I created the name, and RHD is the initials of my name. All right, fair enough. So it's a show that you like, and you liked it at the time you created the name. Cool. James Pulio says, allocation can fail, as if. I assure you that has never happened before anywhere on Earth. Yeah. I saw a tweet by Loris from the Zig community just yesterday, I think it was. He was saying something about how like people say that this freaking stuff. Okay, let's use knitter. Like I was just saying, knitter. I almost did it right. He was saying something about how people say that allocation never fails, and those people probably never tried to render a video. Yes, this one right here. But you will never run out of memory on a modern PC. Yeah, this is definitely a thing. When you edit audio or video, memory, disk space, all of these things that you take for granted, suddenly they just poof. It's a bit alarming just how unprepared, like the Linux desktop I'm using right now, it does not handle like running out of disk space and running out of memory gracefully at all. Like stuff just starts dying or randomly failing in interesting ways, and there's no message of any kind. And the first times it happened, I didn't even realize what was going on, and it was only once I would SSH from my laptop into my main computer and like look around and eventually realize, wait a minute, there's no disk space. It's a very like undignified state for the machine to get into, or it shouldn't have to be, but it is, because I guess most people never test for it. And honestly, I can't say that I'm good at testing for this either. It's one of those things that you just kind of think, that won't happen. But you know, if we were a bit more serious, I guess, about considering edge cases, it is something that we should take into account. And maybe I need to make some kind of a New Year's resolution to care about running out of disk space, because the best we do in Serenity is we report the error. Like we have syscalls can fail that you're out of space, but it's not like we do anything particularly graceful with that. And in fact, it would be nice to also have some sort of like a warning message when you're getting close to running out, things like that. There's probably all kinds of stuff you can do, really. Like if you know which process is rapidly chewing up disk, you could probably throttle it while you ask the user, like, hey, in my case, it would say something like, hey, looks like Audacity is using, or is chewing up like 1 GB of disk per second. Are you sure you want that to continue? I don't know exactly how it would work, but it seems like something that we could build, you know? PPT IDE says, I had Blender use the 35 out of 8 gigabytes of RAM while editing on my MacBook. That does sound like Blender, yeah. Macs have quite optimistic, or at least Mac OS has an optimistic view on memory. You know, they're pretty happy to just hand out more and more, and then they do all kinds of strats and tactics behind the scenes to compress, swap, try to pretend that they have way more memory, and not the greatest thing, perhaps. James Pulio says, a very Zig statement from a Zig contributor. I personally haven't encountered running out of disk space, but certainly memory. And I can assure you most applications still don't handle it cleanly. True that. Yeah. Wait, hold on. All right. Using the software mute there to clear my throat. Hopefully you didn't hear that. Okay. The meaning of haste says, oh my god, I just learned about knitter. Thanks, Andreas. You're welcome, the meaning of haste. Knitter is super neat. It's essentially just read-only Twitter with, I don't know, like 1% of the JavaScript or something like that. So it's like, it loads fast and feels fast. And it's just, you know, I hope that actual Twitter one day could be this fast. That would be sweet. Let's see. Jeje says, just to clarify, I don't mind Twitter at all. SerenityOS Social is just so much nicer because so many cool Serenity people are in the same space. Sure. Of course, it's lovely to have people in the same space. I got nothing against that, but I got all the Serenity people on Discord, so. Oh, hold on. Let's see. Firefox 317 says, can you show the layout of Knitter on Ladybird? Yes. Let's see how that goes. Let's visit McDonald's. I bet they have a Twitter account. Okay. What the frick? I guess I guess we're all in love with McDonald's. Yeah, so this is what it looks like at the moment. It's pretty decent. I think there's some aspect ratio issue with images. Definitely, you can see here, these are supposed to be square, I think. Let's bring this up for comparison. So yeah, it's like close, but aspect ratio is screwed on the image there. These are supposed to be square, don't know why. Probably, I think that's a flexbox item and height, percentage height interaction or something like that. And then there seems to be a bit of excess white space above these names. Probably that animation is not going to run. Yeah. So I don't know what these videos are. Are they just actual videos? Oh, it's a video element. Okay, yeah, we don't have video elements, so obviously we're not gonna render these yet. But we will get to it. One thing at a time. More people always welcome to work on Ladybird, by the way. There's just infinity things to improve in a browser engine and a JavaScript, CSS, HTML, DOM, you know, all of these things. And also all of the sort of auxiliary dependencies like 2D graphics, true type font, stuff like that. Let's see. Spooky Putat says, do you think the trend of sites increasing how dependent on JavaScript is a bad one? And also, do you think the requirement of logging in to be able to browse sites such as Twitter and Instagram is a bad one? I think, yes. Ultimately, I would love to see less JavaScript. And I think it's cool whenever CSS is improved in a way that lets people use less JavaScript. I think that's a win for the world, you know, because at the end of the day, declarative sites that are built in a declarative way where the site code just sort of tells the browser the states that it wants to render and then sort of lets the browser interpolate between those states. I think you end up with a much more power efficient, better performing, better experience for everybody. And when you do that logic in JavaScript, because CSS and HTML are sort of insufficient for what you want to do, then you know we all have to run heavy single-threaded JavaScript on our little devices, and it's nice when we can have less JavaScript. And I think the requirement of logging in that's just silly. I think that's a silly trend, and I understand why they do it, but the reasons that they do it have nothing to do with like making the place better for us as users. It's just business optimization as far as I'm concerned, and to our detriment. So I don't like it. Marco with the super chat. Thank you so much, Marco. I don't think there's a message attached, but thank you very much for the super chat. Really appreciate the support. Oh, wait, hold on. Here is the message attached. It just came right after. Marco says, hey, Andreas, can you elaborate on the forward headers you include? I'm guessing it's to speed up compile times, but how does that exactly work? And how can I profit from that in my own projects? Yes, of course, we can look at that. Forward declarations in general are a fantastic technique for improving compile times with large C++ projects. And let's take some examples. So let's look at the JavaScript AST, for example. So we can see right here that we have a bunch of forward declarations, but that's not really what these are for. Actually, let me go to a forwarding header instead. We'll look at the JavaScript forwarding header that we have. So it's called forward.h, and it's really just a bunch of class and struct declarations. And what this lets you do, it lets you use these types in a limited but very helpful set of contexts. So say that you want to use some type like promise capability, and I want to put that into some other file that I'm working on, like global environment.h, whatever. And I want to just have an API here. So void foo, and I want to take a promise capability. So the reason that this forward declaration is so powerful is because I don't need to include promise capability.h where this is actually declared, because the forward declaration is enough if I'm only using it to describe, to declare a function like this. So for this, you don't need anything but the forward declaration. If I were to put a member here, like m capability or whatever, then the forward declaration is not enough. You need the full type, which means that at this point you have to include the header so you can see the declaration of promise capability. But if you only need to do this, so you're only passing it or maybe returning it, and even you can even use pointers to them. You can store a pointer like this, then you don't need to include the thing because pointers are always the same size. The reason that you need to include it for members is because you need to know how large it is. And if you have a pointer like this, this is okay, but say that you were to have a function in line here that tries to dereference that thing. At this point, this is not going to work because in order to dereference the pointer, we need to know what's inside the type. So once again, the forward declaration is not enough. But yeah, so for many cases, it's enough to just have a struct promise capability or class promise capability forward declaration, and you can avoid including that thing. And the reason that avoiding the include is so helpful is that this include means all this code also has to compile, and everything that this includes also has to compile, and it just pulls in potentially like a lot more headers, right? And they all contain a lot more code that needs to be lexed, parsed, understood by the compiler. So the less you include, generally, the faster, right? And these forwarding headers or forward declaration headers that we have are just they're essentially just collections of lots of forward declarations like this, so that if you are going to do some libjs stuff, very often it's enough to just include this, and you can use all the types in the ways that I just demonstrated, as long as you're not actually like dereferencing pointers to the types or making them members of something, or doing some other operation that needs to see the full type, then that's sufficient. And so yes, that's essentially what it's about. Super recommend it, and definitely recommend trying to strive to include as little as possible. This week I spent almost a full day in the end reducing the include graph in libjs, so that this AST file, which I did a video a couple of days ago where I was reducing the memory usage on Twitter and Ladybird. And when I touched this file, I had to rebuild over 1,000 files, right? And now if I touch the file, I only have to rebuild, I think, 59 files or something like that is what I got it down to. in Ladybird, it's only 28 files. So huge difference. And most of that was like switching to using forward declarations for lots of things, and just getting rid of any include statements that I could avoid in various places, and very profitable for incremental build times. Anyways, I hope that answers your question. Let's see. KKKKKK says, what distro do you use? This is Ubuntu Mate. fixmes says, how do you feel about contributions to Yakt being on a continuous decline for some time already? Personally, I wonder if it hinders the adoption into SerenityOS. I'm just curious. That seems fine with me. I mean, I think there was an initial boost of excitement because people were like, oh, a new language, I want to poke around with that. And then people sort of drifted away, and I'm okay with that. That doesn't bother me. But the main thing that's holding up Yakt at this point is just that there's a bunch of grunt work that still needs to happen to make it smooth, to bring it into Serenity. And once that grunt work is done, then I would expect people to get a lot more interested in it again. But like at the moment, Yakt is in kind of a little bit of a limbo state almost, because there's this like big task that that nobody wants to do. I don't know if nobody wants to do it, but nobody is doing it. And I've started poking a bit at it this week, and making progress. And it's honestly like most of the C++ and Yakt parts are fine, but the CMake parts are not fun. I know I think I said the same exact thing last week, but my feelings are still the same. But we'll get there. Let's see. Damikiller 37. Well, hello, friends. Hello to you too. Let's see. I don't know how to pronounce that. Let me search. Can I get some romanization or something? Dimitri, is that it? Assuming that that's Dimitri. Dimitri says, Serenity requires GCC 12, but I have GCC 11 in Gen 2. I'm sure you can figure out how to get GCC 12. If you're using a distribution like Gen 2, you're supposed to be a power user, so I have faith that you can figure that out. PrataGM1 says, why all big tech companies started pushing Rust recently? And do you think C++ is a bad choice to start a new project? I don't know why. I guess, you know, they probably got a little bit hyped about it because it does solve some old problems in some interesting ways. And it's understandable that people are excited about that. And then the marketing effort behind Rust has been absolutely amazing, you know, in so many ways. Like, they've really succeeded at convincing people that Rust is amazing, and credit to them for doing such a good job at that. You know, probably some of it was accidental because it got like picked up and pushed by a huge community as well. But the people who are marketing Rust are clearly quite clever. So props to them. Do I think C++ is a bad choice to start a new project? I don't think I would start a new project in C++ now. I don't know if it's a good choice or a bad choice. It depends on what kind of environment you're starting a project in. Like, if you're in a totally greenfield environment where you have no dependencies and you don't need to interact with any existing code in any language, I would not recommend starting in C++ now. It seems like even the sort of C++ industry or the C++ community is like starting to shift away from C++. If you look at the how there are like all these sort of post C++ languages springing up inside of the C++ community recently, like CPP Front and Carbon and Circle and other things like that, right? That's not to say that C++ is going to go away. You know, it's going to be here in 30 years still, but I don't think I would start something in it now. Milani says, "Hi Andreas, finally managed to catch the stream. I have nothing to ask, just wanted to say thank you for the heaps of amazing content." Sure, I'm glad you like the content. Thank you for visiting the stream, Milani. Marco says, "That was super useful. Thanks so much. Keep up the good work." Hey, I'm glad I was able to distill a useful explanation of forwarding headers. Let's see. Jason L says, "Hi Andreas, I saw your tweet about reducing the include graph for AST.h. Would this be something that could be done by Yakt's transpiler?" Yes, absolutely. It's one of the areas that I really want to explore what we can do with the transpilation system in Yakt. One idea that I've had is that we would get it to transpile, like every single struct and every class would generate its own header file, for example. And then the output from Yakt would be sort of the perfect include only what you use, like the perfect hypothetical minimal include graph program. And I'm curious to see if we could generate that in a reasonably fast time, and how much faster it could be to compile if we generate like the minimum program for everything, because it's not obvious that it's going to be faster on the whole, because you have things like compiler startup time, and maybe you can shatter a program into like 1,000 separate files, but then all of those 1,000 files still include a bunch of system headers that end up sort of compounding to a net greater, longer final result time anyway. So I think it's something that we can only really figure out by trying it and measuring it. But yes, I'm definitely interested in exploring that type of stuff. Let's see. Jesse K says, "Do you ever plan to add some sort of package manager for software that doesn't need to be in the mono repo?" I do not really have a plan one way or the other for anything. But we do have the ports tree. So that's sort of how we bring in things to Serenity right now, is that if you want to have something outside of the tree, you just make like a little port script for it. We have over 200 different packages you can build that way today. Swanimir says, "What do you think of using fixme roulette in team? Like once a week, everyone gets a random fixme to work on. Is it bad for productivity?" I don't know. I think it depends, you know? It depends on what kind of fixmes you have, like how big a task do you typically make fixmes about? I think in Serenity we have it's a pretty fortunate setup. Like most fixmes, certainly the ones I've encountered so far during the roulette stuff, and also just like looking at our general state, the general state of our fixme collection, most of them are stuff you can do in less than 3 hours, I would say. There are, of course, a couple of outliers that will take longer than that, but somebody who's strongly familiar with the domain can do most of the fixmes in a reasonable time frame, I would say. So if you're talking about a place where people are at that level and the fixmes are at that level, then it could be a fun thing to do. But I don't know. It's hard with stuff like that, especially in a professional context, because as engineers, we usually feel like, oh, it would be so nice to just clean up some of this old technical debt every now and then, right? But it's not always the case that management feels like that's a good use of resources. So you do have to contend with that, that whole thing, if that makes sense. But something like Fix Me Friday, you know, where every Friday you would try to fix a Fix Me. I could imagine that could be fun for a while, at least as long as you have low-hanging fruit Fix Me's. Once you fix all those, then it might get a bit tedious. Electric Milk says, how did Yaks come into the project? You know, I don't remember exactly how it started or when it started, but it was probably on IRC. We were just talking about yak shaving. And once we switched to Discord and we started being able to make custom emojis, and then we just started making these random yak themed emojis. I think one of the first things where it really got really yacked was when we started running the JavaScript test suite, test 262. Then somebody made, like, for the different results you could get on a test, so you could have like a test could pass, fail, crash, timeout. There's like 5 different states or something like that, and then somebody drew like a little yak for each state. And those were like some of the early yak emojis that we have on Discord. And then it kind of just spiraled from there. But I don't remember the very first occurrence of somebody saying yak something. Let's see. James says, personally, programming with a borrow checker is just difficult for me to wrap my head around, and additionally, I don't believe it benefits me in the projects I create. I agree with a more memory-safe programming language, but a borrow checker seems like a weird way about it. I certainly might not know enough, though. Maybe I'm bad at Rust still. So I think... So in my limited experience with Rust, I would say I think the borrow checker approach to memory safety, the big benefit that it has is that it basically allows you to write really efficient code, because they sort of push the responsibility of demonstrating correctness onto the user of the language, whereas historically, like, memory safe languages have taken some of that responsibility themselves by providing like automatic reference counting or garbage collection or something like that, and sort of freeing the user from having to think about these things. And the borrow checker technique pushes that responsibility, or at least pushes a lot more of that responsibility onto the programmer, and it allows you to write ultimately more efficient programs. Potentially, it gives you the power to write more efficient programs, because you're not giving up any potential performance for convenience. And there's definitely a huge benefit to that, right? There are many use cases where you want to push your program to be as fast as possible, but I think it's interesting that it's sort of being memed as this like great general purpose thing, and it seems very, I don't know, like you have to do so much extra work for a general purpose thing. And if you look at something like JavaScript, which is perhaps a little too loosey-goosey, but definitely never feels like you have to do like all this extra stuff, right? And my gut feeling is that the sweet spot is really somewhere in the middle, like something like TypeScript, for example. I think Swift hits a nice sweet spot. Somebody was telling me about Go. It sounds like Go is pretty sweet spotty, and we're obviously definitely trying to hit a kind of sweet spot with Yakt as well, where we just make it really comfortable for the developer while still shooting for like still being within that like range, within like I don't know what to call it, within spitting distance of optimal, but not quite perfect. Whereas Rust might allow you to write a perfect program with great effort. Hopefully that makes sense. Stefano says, is the SerenityOS toolchain based on GCC? What did you tweak/hack? So we have two separate toolchains. You can choose which one you want to build. We have both GCC and Clang. And there are patches for both of them. We have patches for LLVM, we have patches for GCC, and actually also for binutils to set up our target triplet, and things like that. And you can find all of the changes that we make to those packages. You can find them right here. So if you go in the GCC directory, for example, you find the 6 patches. There's even a README file that describes what each patch does if you want to learn more about it. So check out the toolchain patches directory. Jaja says that yak shaving seems to just be a tech expression. Yak shaving or shaving a yak is a term coined by Carlin Vieri, an MIT PhD in the 90s after watching an episode of the Ren and Stimpy show. Huh, today I learned. And today we all learned. Thank you, Jaja. James Pulio says, I can't believe I forgot to ask you today, but what are you drinking and in which mug? I am drinking some Twinings English breakfast in my Santa mug I got here. Getting ready for Christmas with my Santa mug. Although, to be fair, I've been using the Christmas mug for the last 6 months, so I'm for the most of the year, I'm using Christmas things because I just really like Christmas. Let's see. Spooky Patat said, is there any type of development you would never want to do, like mobile development, game development, etc.? I would like to never do anything with microtransactions. If I can go my whole life without having to build anything with microtransactions, I will be happy. Claude says, now that you talked about forwarding headers, I'd be interested in if Serenity uses precompiled headers and if you think it would be useful. So we did have precompiled headers for a while, but I think what happened was that they would sometimes get silently corrupted, and we couldn't, at least at the time, we couldn't figure out a way to detect that the corruption had occurred. And the only way to fix the corruption was to like nuke your build directory and start over. And at some point we just disabled precompiled headers because this kept happening, and it like whenever it would happen, it would take quite a while to figure out that that's what happened. And it just became this really frustrating thing to deal with. Even if it was only like every couple of weeks, it was still like the gain in speed was not enough to justify the occasional super frustrating, confusing debugging experience. But maybe it's something that we could revisit. I don't know, because maybe the corruption was just that we had screwed up our build system dependencies somewhere, that they were not described correctly, and who knows. But we've had them in the past, and the gain that they provided was quite small, as I recall, like single-digit %, nothing super exciting, with some interesting breakages when they would get corrupt. Well, hello, Milan. How's it going? It's a beautiful golden yak. I always get this stupid laugh on the inside when I see this goofy yak. Let's see. Seth says, in Unveil, what does the mode B grant? That's a good question. I don't remember. Let's find out. Unveil. Unveil. Oops. Oh my goodness, I'm browse. Okay. I think it's that you can enumerate directories. So I'm pretty sure that's what it is. So if you have B permission for a path, it means that you can see the files in that directory, basically. So unveil. So wait, what did I open? Huh? Did you die? Yeah, oh, see, it's even in the man page. So if you look at the man page, let's look at it on Serenity actually. Okay, well, that's taking a hot minute, so let's look at it here. Where is it? Examples. B. Allow the process to browse files from user share. Yes. So it lets you use the directory entry, get directory entries, syscall, I would think. That's probably what it is. And that's, I think that's an extension. OpenBSD, where we got Unveil from originally, does not have B, as I recall. Let's see. MSCLRHD says the borrow checker is effectively language support for things like unique putter that make it easier to read, like how Kotlin and others with null coalescence replace the use of null checks and optionals. Thomas says you can always throw reference counted pointers at the borrow checker if it's bothering you. Yes, you certainly can. And I think what I've learned from JT, who teaches Rust, is that for the most part with Rust, like the way to have a good experience is to just sort of let yourself not shoot for optimum efficiency in every program, because you can just copy things or like clone or whatever they call it, right? Like you can clone things here and there, and maybe it's not optimally efficient, but if that allows you to write the program in 5 minutes instead of 15, then maybe it's worth eating that inefficiency, you know? And I think the way that Rust is marketed and the way that it's taught by the book and the way people talk about it, it's almost like it's sort of suggested that you shouldn't program in this way, but it seems to me like that's like the way more productive way to do it. And when we were building the original Rust-based compiler for Yakt, that's certainly how we did it. Like I spent, I think, like zero amount of time fighting with the borrow checker or whatever while we were building the Rust-based Yakt compiler. Because of the way that JT set up the project, it was just never an issue. And we were sort of, yes, we were writing less efficient than what is maximally possible Rust, but it was a decent experience using the language. So, Ixilum says, why no you use Yak Mug? Because it's in the dishwasher. That's basically the reason. And also, I'm a little bit in the Christmas mood, I think. Definitely hyped for it. Andy says, time to get a tea advent calendar. Is that a thing? That sounds like a nice thing. Like a super interesting new tea every day. I wonder if Twinings has a tea calendar. Twinings tea advent. Is that a thing? No way. 24 days of super plants. I hope it's not too late to acquire this thing. Okay. Well, I will be returning to that after the stream. Let's see. Human says, do you think learning programming is more difficult today as tech stacks are getting deeper, or back in the day when there were fewer resources to learn from, but overall the tech was more shallow? It's absolutely easier today. I think. Wait a minute. What on earth? What on earth was that? Did I just get a notification? Google, I have never approved any notifications in Chrome. Chrome just got on my shit list. Yeah, so I do think that it's easier today because perhaps, yes, the tech was more shallow in the past, but the resources in the past were so bad. Like it's hard to understand if you were not there just how little information there was about stuff, and you couldn't go and just search for things online. Like information was something really precious that you would sometimes get into, like when you would get access to a new book or a magazine or something like that. And I had so often had this experience of like getting a copy of a game and then just marveling at like, how could you possibly do this? Because I was programming at an early age, and like the first time I would play Doom or something like that, I was just, it blew my mind. Like, somebody wrote a program that does this? How? How could they have done this? And it was just like this, I don't know. It was like we were all stuck in these silos of information, and sometimes people would reach out from their silo and give you things, and you would try to give other people what you had, but it's nothing like it is today. Today, when information just flows freely, I think it's such a beautiful thing, and it's a great time to be alive, and it's a great time to be a new programmer, I think. And yes, it is true that the tech stacks are deeper, and abstractions are perhaps, you might even say, a little bit out of control, but the access to information is like just vastly outweighs the inconvenience of the thicker stacks. That's at least that's my gut feeling about it. At the same time, I can't know for sure because I'm not a beginner anymore, not a complete beginner. But like whenever I try to learn anything new these days, whether technology related or completely unrelated, it always just feels so good that the internet exists and can provide all this information at my fingertips. I don't miss that aspect of the past at all. Spooky Potat says, why is there a battery icon in your taskbar? Also, is that Russian or Ukrainian text you just typed? I have no idea if that was Russian or Ukrainian text. It was, I think it was the name Dmitry that I copied earlier in the chat. And I still had it on the clipboard. The battery icon, okay, so actually, I don't know how to get rid of this battery icon. I don't want it here. It's true that I have a battery-powered mouse, but I don't need to see that here. The mouse will tell me when the battery runs out because it will stop working. And I've tried to get rid of this thing, but I can't figure out how. So that's definitely something I would love to know if anybody knows how to get rid of it. Because I can show you that it has this thing. It says never display an icon, which as you can see is selected, but the icon is still there. And Ixilum with the super chat saying, you know you want the tea calendar. Thank you, Ixilum. I guess I am now getting the tea calendar. Cool. Thank you so much. I'm gonna get the tea calendar. And I will report back with the review, I guess. Let's see. James says, I do believe that explanation of goals and benefits for borrow checking makes sense. Now it's on me to decide if in my project it's worth the potentially and likely minute performance benefit. The answer is likely no. I do believe the language is advertised as a catch-all, and this hot new language you must know. It's a bit over the top, but I'm sure there are good cases for it. Yeah, I mean, clearly Rust is catching on not just because of marketing, but because people are enjoying it. People are having a good time with it and finding ways to be productive with it, finding productive uses for it, no doubt. But I think anybody can see that that it goes a little too far sometimes. Like people get a little too excited, and I think all of us have probably at one point or another been a little too excited about some kind of technology. I certainly remember trying to convince my entire family as a teenager that they should use Linux because, come on, you got to use Linux, Mom. You don't need Microsoft Office. Look, you can just use Abbey Word and what was it? K spreadsheet or something. It seemed like a reasonable thing to do at the time, but to my mom's credit, she just shrugged it off and did not make her life difficult with those things. Jeja says, go buy some Tipex for that icon. Tipex? I have not seen Tipex in forever. Does that still exist? Tipex is yeah, it's like this Swedish whiteout, basically. I guess it still exists. So you just put it over things so you don't have to see them. I wonder if there is a black Tipex. That's what I would need here to black that one out. As Vonimir says, my experience is that I learn best when I force myself to try to solve problems, not just Googling for answers. Most people over Google, and that is not good for deeper knowledge. Yeah, I think that's absolutely a thing that happens. And I think, for example, like Stack Overflow is a good example of that. A lot of people, they have some kind of issue and they just run to Stack Overflow without trying to solve it themselves first. And that creates this weird spiral where more and more code in the world, I would think, gets copied from places like Stack Overflow. And then like other people, they read that code, and now these like random answers from Stack Overflow just spread everywhere. And I think you don't learn a lot by approaching programming in that way. And you like the more you do it, the more dependent you become on it. So definitely, I always encourage people to try first to do things by yourself, even if you feel like you don't know how to do it or you can't figure it out. Just try to do it anyway. Like push yourself a little bit forward and see how far you can get. And then even if you fail, just trying first by yourself allows you to understand other answers that you look up in a much more deeper and more nuanced way, right? Like if you don't know how to sort a list, for example, just as a stupid example, if you don't know how to sort a list, you try to figure out how to do it by trying to write some code yourself, and then you eventually read a sorting algorithm. By having been in that headspace where you try to figure out how to do it, it will be much easier to understand sorting algorithms. That has been my experience, at least. Trying to build something just lets you understand how other people built it much better. Andy says, just put electric tape on your monitor. Yeah. Thank you, Jeja, by the way, for the Tipex cache. Karim says, hello from Tunisia. Hello to you too. Krister says, it's funny, can program an entire operating system but can't remove an icon from a taskbar. Hey. maybe I need to bust out the code for whatever this thing is and do some hacks. Maybe I guess that is what I should do. I should figure out what's really causing it and then fix it and then submit a patch. That would be the true good boy open source thing to do. PPTIDE, PPTide says, thank you for getting me interested in programming again. Dude, I'm so glad you're interested in programming again. I didn't know you were not. Glad to hear that you're back on the programming train. Ludwig says, Google tells me you could uninstall the entire indicator power package. That is, I wonder if we can do that. Indicator power. So now like everything is going to fall apart. I don't have it. Okay. So I think I already saw that suggestion and tried it, I guess, but it's still there. Yeah. Madman Mark O says, at work we had a new programmer we hired. Their entire coding style was copying code from Stack Overflow, pasting it into the application, and then calling the senior developer, which was me, for help because it didn't work. No editing, literally all their code was copy paste. They didn't last long. That's very annoying for you, I bet. I guess it was annoying for you since they didn't last long. Yeah, okay, so I gotta go actually, but let's just look at this last message here because Krister says, did you see that Daniel included Serenity in his last blog post regarding curl? I did not see that. Let's look that up. By the way, Daniel has a sweet domain name, hacks.sc. Very cool. 89 operating systems. Hey, where are we? 89 operating systems. I bet we're in here, right? There. That's us. Hey. That's pretty cool. Yeah, that's curl was one of the earlier ports that we saw, I think. I don't remember exactly when we first got it. Curl. Add curl port 2019 in August. So it was almost a year into the project. So it wasn't that early, I guess, but early-ish. Anyways, I gotta run. So thank you all for coming to office hours, for hanging out with me. Thank you all for the super chats and the fun comments and silly questions and the non-silly questions as well. I hope everybody has a great weekend and finds some way to have fun with programming. If you end up working on Serenity or any of the related projects, come hang out with us on Discord. Outside of that, I will see you all next time. So, ciao.